Lord of the Mysteries. Chapter 947. House Call. Backland, East Borough, in a two-room apartment. A few policemen in black and white checkered uniforms opened the door and entered. All of them reached out to cover their mouths. There was a strong stench of blood inside. "Officer, I've no idea what happened. Other tenants said that it seems like there's plenty of blood here, that they can even smell it from next door." The landlord with a silk top hat looked around in fear, unwilling to stay in the room for another second. A black-haired, blue-eyed police officer with an inspector epaulet waved his hand and said, "Wait by the door. We still have questions for you." As he spoke, he wore his white gloves and cast his gaze towards the wooden door of the bedroom. However, he wasn't in a rush to enter. He slowly surveyed the area and visually took in the surroundings: a pile of coal, a cupboard with cutlery and food, a small stove, a cleanly washed iron pot, a somewhat greasy table, two collapsed circular stools, two slanted chairs, a few glass bottles with unknown powders, and a stack of scattered tarot cards. "A mysticism enthusiast with an ordinary financial situation?" The black-haired, blue-eyed inspector nodded gently as he made a judgment. Then, he signaled for a subordinate to open the bedroom door. With a creak, a stronger smell of blood gushed out. The constable who opened the door looked in and let out a short exclamation as he repeatedly retreated. The inspector frowned. He pressed the retreating constable's shoulders, circled around him, and approached the bedroom. When he swept his gaze, his expression immediately changed. In the bedroom, on a wooden bed, there was a man lying there. His hands were tied to the bedpost. He was naked with deep and shallow marks on his body. His blood had long been drained, dyeing the bedsheet and blanket beside him dark red. On a cursory glance, the deceased had apparently been bound by metal wire, cutting into his skin and flesh, right into his bones. This scene still affected the policeman who had seen many murder scenes. Furthermore, it had a diabolical feeling, like it was a ritual. As the inspector was about to say something, two people rushed into the room. One of them attempted to take photos while the other bombarded him with questions. "Another murder case? Hasn't there been many murder cases in East Borough recently? Officer, do you think it's a serial murder?" The black-haired, blue-eyed inspector frowned and waved his hand. "Do not interfere with the scene, otherwise we will view you as the criminal's accomplice." He then said to the constable from before, "Kaziz, please escort the two reporters away. Tell them that if they have any questions, ask the news department of Civilhouse Yard." After the reporters were escorted out of the crime scene, the inspector let out a long sigh. "I'm going on the newspapers again. Damn it!" In Empress Borough, the opulent villa of Earl Hall. Another murder in East Borough. The victim is suspected to have been abused before being killed. Having had dinner, Audrey was in the activity room casually reading the Backland Evening News. Upon hearing his daughter's soft muttering, Earl Hall shook his head and sighed. "This isn't new in East Borough. The statistics show that there are people dying every day in there. It's far from one person." Audrey didn't pay too much attention to the matter. After a casual chat with her parents and brother, she returned to her room with her golden retriever, Susie. The human and dog could read each other's minds without any exchanging of words. The latter stood by the door as a guard while Audrey locked the door. She sat by her bed and chanted Mr. Fool's honorific name. After a few seconds, she saw a dark red beam of light surge and drown everything. Audrey arrived above the gray fog, coming inside the magnificent and ancient palace. She then saw a small room to the side. The model door was ajar. "It's much better than the old confessional from before. However, this doesn't match Mr. World's character. Did something happen to his state of mind?" In thought, Audrey entered the room and closed the model door. She had previously had a follow-up appointment with the World Gairman Sparrow and concluded that he had fully recovered. To her surprise, she received a request from him for another treatment. This left her puzzled as she felt a little intrigued. In the rather spacious dark room, Audrey leaned against the wall that obviously had another person behind it. Her body slowly slid down as she knelt down with her legs placed diagonally. In the calm and serene atmosphere, she adjusted her state of mind and said with a brisk tone, "Good evening, Mr. Worrell." Just as she said that, Audrey's spiritual intuition already knew the situation with his body of heart and mind, or in common parlance, his emotions or mood. Gloomy, disheartened, confused, depressed, and having no interest in anything. Mr. Worrell's current problem is completely different from the last one. What happened this time? Audrey gently bit her lip and calmly made a judgment, and used a timely placate. This was the most useful power of a psychiatrist. In ancient times, it was called psychoanalysis. The dark clouds behind the wall scattered significantly. Gehrman Sparrow finally hoarsely said, "Good evening, Miss Justice." Leaning against the wall, Audrey thought and cancelled her original plan. She maintained her brisk tone and said, "I'm very curious about your recent experiences. It seems you have had too many encounters. There's no need to think about anything else. Let's have a chat first, just like we're friends. If you're interested in my life, I'm also willing to share with you some of the interesting matters." On the opposite side of the wall, Gehrman Sparrow fell silent for a moment. Without answering the question, he asked, "What hopes do you have for the future?" Audrey's eyes darted slightly to the side as she replied seriously, "To advance myself, to work hard to become a demigod so as to better protect my father, mother, and brothers. Oh, I've recently visited the applicants to the Bursary Foundation with the other staff of the foundation. Their living conditions are really worse than I imagined. Although I've read some reports and was mentally prepared, I still found it unsettling when I saw it with my own eyes. A girl who's just a few years younger than me was very short and skinny. She doesn't fill her stomach daily, and she only has 2 tattered dresses. When she said that she wishes to study, her eyes were extremely pure and filled with an earnest desire. I can't forget it to this day." As she spoke, Audrey acutely sensed the change in Gehrman Sparrow's mental state. It was no longer a completely still lake, and it was now rippling and undulating. After a short deliberation, this psychiatrist continued as though she didn't seem to notice anything. "I once anticipated having a beautiful wedding, wishing that my prince will appear like those popular novels. However, after becoming a spectator, I realized that I might never be able to fulfill this dream. I can often read the true thoughts of those men and see through their lies. I'm able to confirm that many people aren't as nice as I imagined, and it has left me disappointed. In a few more years, I might be able to appreciate people for their flaws, but it's really difficult to do so now." Noticing that Gehrman Sparrow, who had his back to her across the wall, having the emotions of laughter, Audrey did a timely placate on him. Then she heard him ask, "You once gathered information about dragons from the sun. You should have some understanding of the dragon of imagination. If I were to tell you that your father, mother, and brothers are imagined by the spectator pathway's king of angels and that they do not really exist, what would be your reaction?" "I'll definitely collapse on the spot and directly lose control. Mr. Worrell has a psychological problem because of his discovery that the thing that he has been anticipating, his ultimate goal, will never be fulfilled?" Audrey was first alarmed by Gehrman Sparrow's question before she realized the essence of the question. She didn't reply as she asked in a guiding manner, "You seem to have witnessed the destruction of hope." Heh. There was a self-deprecating scoff sounding from the wall behind Audrey. "Indeed, I once thought that I had family. Later, I realized that it was only an extravagant hope of mine." "Why do you say that?" Audrey asked like she was having a casual chat. Gehrman Sparrow fell silent for a few seconds before saying, "Have you heard of those fairy tales that Emperor Roselle used for bringing up children? Those are my childhood memories," Audrey acknowledged. At the same time, she discovered that Mr. Worrell's emotions were clearly stirred on. The other side of the wall. Repressed pain was surging out. This time, Audrey didn't use placate. Her spiritual intuition and professional knowledge told her that he needed to vent it out. "Then you should know of Sleeping Beauty and her prince," Gehrman Sparrow said with a soft, hoarse voice. "There's one such person who also entered a deep sleep until he suddenly woke up one day. He believes that his family is still around, and he works hard to improve himself, hoping that he can one day find them. This becomes his main driving force in life. Finally, he realized that he has slept for at least 300 years, or even more than 1,000 years, perhaps even longer. He can never find anything that he once had anymore. The intense pain and sense of loss was extremely clear to Audrey. She came to a realization. The gloomy, restrained, experienced, and ruthless Mr. World also has his own goals and reason for existing. This is in line with his gentle heart. How pitiful! Although he was giving an example using a fairy tale, some of the emotions he felt when saying certain words reflect reality. When he mentioned deep sleep, family, 300 years, more than 1,000 years, even longer, never find, his pain clearly increased. This means that he's from an ancient time and has lived to this day due to certain encounters. This matches the situation of Mr. Fool being an awakening ancient god. It's no wonder he became his blessed. Audrey quickly grasped the key to the matter. She pursed her lips and pondered for a moment. Did his family say anything? Did they say what they wanted him to do when he wakes up?